Joining me this morning is Amos Wekesa. Amos is the CEO of Great Lakes Safaris and Uganda Lodges and many other things. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
I like your casual look. You know, you're always dressed down. I'm sure it makes you a lot easier to go around your work. And so, little wonder you do so many things. Some of us, we are incapacitated, you know.
No, it's just a psychological problem. I can't put on a suit and I feel comfortable. That's the only thing. I think if you're comfortable, it's fine for you. But for me, man.
Good for you. That works for you. Good for you. Tell me, when you look at Uganda and the beauty of this country, so much has been talked about this country. You do not need to have grown here forever. Even somebody that comes in for, a couple of hours, they can see that this country is beautiful. Yeah. But for some reason, we're not making good use of this beauty. What's wrong with us? Is it that we don't see it? Is it that we don't value it well enough? Is it that we are complacent? It is there, so no big deal.
No, I think Uganda's biggest challenge is that we're extremely very gifted country in terms of diversity of culture. We're so gifted when it comes in terms of fertile land. For example, if you get Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda put together, Uganda has 48.9% of the arable land. So we're just a garden. We have the greatest weather, so you don't have to change your shirt. You have the source along this river. You have a big portion of Lake Victoria. You have so many mountains, third, fourth, fifth highest mountains on the continent. Food just grows natural. I think those are the factors that have actually led to our innovativeness. We're not, it kills innovation. I think necessity we lack necessity. There's nothing that drives us to be able to utilize the lot that we do have as a nation. Yeah, and I think that's our biggest problem.
Let's look at how much we get to inject in this country. As of last year, we injected about $2 million US, and then we were able to reap about $1.5 billion US. Maybe, yeah. If Uganda invested about 6 billion shillings. 6 billion shillings was what was given to Uganda Tourism Board. 6 billion Uganda shillings.
Uganda shillings. And I can also tell you that out of
that's the $2 million.
Yes, out of the 6 billion shillings, less than 2.1 billion was actually used as a marketing budget, which is less than $700,000 in today's exchange rate, about maybe $600,000 in today's exchange rate. Of course, if you compare that with countries like Kenya or Tanzania or Rwanda, Kenya has just upped their marketing budget this year to an equivalent of 210 billion Ugandan shillings equivalent, which is $70 million just for their marketing of a nation. Tanzania, of course, is over $12 million. Rwanda is over $5 million. But also government, of course, has tried to improve this time round. They've given Uganda Tourism Board 12 billion shillings. But I also realize that it's not just now about the money. It's about the willingness of the people that get this money to use it to actually attract the numbers. The challenge we also have is that I think the private sector is not strong enough to demand for numbers from Uganda Tourism Board. Even when people like myself sit on the board, the challenge you have is that the majority of the people on the board don't necessarily have direct interest. They don't have investment in the industry. So it's very difficult for them to fight hard for this, for the numbers. As government picks interest in the sector and tries to put money, I think it's also important that we start thinking about reorganization of the whole tourism industry. There are too many power centers. The Ministry of Tourism is a power center. Uganda Life Authority is a power center. Uganda Tourism Board is a power center. UWEC is a power center. The Uganda Museum is a power center. Now, when you have too many power centers, people focus on each other because of ego issues as opposed to actually real productivity. And I think that's one of the areas that Rwanda has done very well is they've put everything under RDB with proper management. And because of that, tourism is flourishing, registration of companies flourishing. Now, in Uganda, unfortunately, we intend to fight each other, forgetting that we're actually competing with the rest of the people around us. We're not competing among ourselves.
We should be complementing each other.
We're actually competing with the rest of the world. Now, if we're competing with the rest of the world, it is important that we find a way of working together. And that is an area that I also see, much as government is interested in, is picking interest in terms of investing in marketing of this country, it is important that we also think about the human resource, because that is a challenge now.
I've met many business person that will say, look, if I have a good product, if I have a good service, why should I advertise? You know, if it's a good product, if it's a good service, it will market itself. This one will tell the other about it and so on. You know about some businesses that really do not have to advertise. Why? Because their product is real good. It is awesome. Everybody runs after it. Maybe that's the mentality we seem to have, because you see, we have everything beautiful in this country. We have literally gotten everything here.
I think our challenge. I think one of our challenges, probably, I'm a Christian, but a lot of Christians think that things, you can just wake up and pray and things happen. No, God has given us wisdom, and we need to apply this wisdom. That's me as a Christian. Just look at the environment. Everywhere you look in this country, you will see MTN. Who doesn't know MTN exists? Everywhere you see in this country, you see Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has been around for over 200 years. But do you know how much money they invest in marketing themselves as a brand? And if they stopped, something else will come and replace them. Now, Uganda, unfortunately, from 1971, we have been our own enemies. We have told the world about disease, about war, about poverty. And because of that, we're attracting sympathy and attracting aid, as opposed to going out there and telling the world that we're ready to do business. All countries or individuals were like products on the shelves. If you're perceived to be a bad product, no one's going to pick you from the shelf. And so Uganda has, even when you're a good product. Absolutely. But perception is everything at times. Perception is everything. Perception rules the world. If you think about countries like the US, how many guys are killed by the police in the US every year? Close to 500 people every year shot by police. How many guys died during the winter in the UK? Hundreds. People have died because of that. How many times do you see BBC telling us about how those people dying? How many times do you see people telling us the challenges the people are facing with the killings of the police on the streets? The CNN will be telling us about how wonderful America is, and will be telling the world how terrible Africa is. Last week, when we had the challenges of arrests and police and running up and down, there was BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, all these guys were camped in the city, Uganda. And what were they covering? Only negative news, telling the world how terrible Uganda is. That's an indictment on we in the media. And look, of course, it's a catch-22. That's beautiful Uganda on your screen there. At least we are attentive. We will keep trying. Yeah, we need to do a lot more, but we have started. Look, we in the media is a catch-22 for us, yeah, because we've got to report and inform people. We've got to, yes, inform, educate, and entertain them. But information is key. If things are happening, it's important that we put them out there. You know, if police is doing things in a wanton manner, we've got to put a spotlight on that. If there are issues with the politics, we've got to put a spotlight on that, and so on. And so I see it as a catch-22. Sometimes maybe journalists are caught between, all right, do I tell this truth, however grotesque it is, or do I paint a good picture of it? But then again, maybe there's these other human interest stories, and yet, truth be told, to many a newspaper, to many a television station, to many a radio station, that does not sell at all. And that maybe is the challenge. I don't think so. I think it's a perception thing. It's a perception issue. Of course, I know that the media will go for what this society wants. And unfortunately, Ugandan society is a society that looks at, you know, that celebrates negativity. And it's not only Ugandan society, it's the world over. Now, I don't think we should hide every challenge that we have as a country. However, we should find a way of having a balance. If we're going to send out 80% of our negative stories and only 20% positive stories, trust me, you will never be anything. It is important that we find a way of putting out 20% negative stories, and let's put 80% of the things that make us who we are and how wonderful we are. Because the thing is that a great image will positively impact all of us. Tourism has the highest trickle-down effect of anything. Today, as I speak, over 82% of our manufactured needs are actually imported. I was actually going to get to that point. I was bantering with a friend of mine who was, you know, we're talking about the economy and the fact that our export, Uganda is a net importer. Yes. Because we import to the tune of about $6 billion and we export about what, $3 billion? Yeah. And that of course has got a factor to do with tethered to why the shilling is slowly but surely plummeting as we see it against the US dollar. And so I was asking him, what do you think is the solution? And he told me the magic bullet is actually tourism. Absolutely. Do you believe them? Absolutely, he's right. You just imagine today, from starting this week, we get 10,000 tourists arriving in Tebe every day, each with $3,000 looking for shillings. You want it, you like it or not, the shilling will gain value overnight. Because the challenge is that we are buying so many dollars, to bring in the imported goods, but we have very little that we're exporting as a nation. Now, there are two things we can do. One is to make sure that we create cottage industries that will help us buy the ties, the shirts, the trousers. I mean, like two of us here. Other than our body, what has been manufactured in Uganda? Nothing. And that's a very dangerous thing for a nation. You can't balance your trade by manufacturing nothing. We're so importing nothing. But if we manufacture through the cottage industries, the money that we should have spent to buy these things, we should have been money that can stay within the economy, so we will not be demanding the dollars. But talking of tourism, is just a direct injection of dollars into a nation. You can imagine tourism has, like I said, the highest trickle-down effect compared to any industry. When a person is London, maybe buys a ticket to British Airways will pay us landing fee. When the clients land in Entebbe, before they leave, they give us $57 as 7 goes to URA, 10 goes to security, $40 goes to handling services. Now, before they even leave the airport, from now, they even give us an extra $100 as visa. Wekesa sends a driver to the airport. This driver is paid a salary. This driver rents. This driver uses airtime. This driver pays school fees for his children. You know, the ripple effect. The ripple effect is massive. So he picks the client goes to a hotel. When he's in the hotel, even just putting up the hotel itself creates a lot of jobs. There are manufacturers involved, suppliers of different products. At the end of the day, when a guy is eating one plate, there's an onion supplier, tomato supplier. So it's not money Wekesa earns. When I get 10,000 tourists from a foreign tourist, what remains with me as a tour operator is only 10%. The rest is distributed within the systems of the country, and therefore it is important we put emphasis on this sector. But Uganda has so much potential, and unfortunately, I've talked about this, and I would keep talking about it. This country can entirely survive on tourism if we're a very serious group of people.
You see, when you elaborate the things that need to be done, they sound plausible, they sound doable, they sound workable.
Yeah.
But for one reason or another, this has become an imbroglio, a difficult challenge for us to get around. Why exactly? Is it that we don't have the willingness? Is it that our priorities are different? Why can't we get our heads around this? Because it's clear that we can rake in quite a bit through tourism. By injecting not so much, we just need to up it up a little bit, you know, but for some reason, we don't seem to get it. What's the problem?
I think a lot of Ugandans...
Or is it feared? Is it too risky a business, or what exactly is the problem?
I don't think so. I think we are laid back now. In a way, we have looked up to politicians, and we think they have a solution. So the majority of Ugandans are not going out there and venturing and doing things. They're sitting there expecting that President Museveni will have a solution for them, Honorable Babas will have a solution for them, Kizza Besigye will have solutions, and Chams will have a solution for them. And because of that, we have become very unproductive people. And we look at this country in terms of a savior. We're assuming that someone is going to come from out there and be able to serve this country. We assume that the president will be able to serve this country. But this country belongs to all of us. We must play a role in trying to make sure that we become proactive. We need to change our education system as well, because our education system is not necessarily helping us. This was introduced to us by the British. The same British abolished the same education system in 1967. And we're still following the same education system that does not necessarily, it's not very productive. I think that we must change the way we think. We must change our attitude towards work. We must change our attitudes towards investment. And that's important. If we don't do that, we won't go far.
You see, there's a Ghanaian professor, Professor Stephen Ade, that once said that leadership is cause, everything else is effect. And I think John C. Maxwell, a leadership expert, that once said that everything rises and falls on leadership. And of course, again, the catch-22, like you say, is we need to look to our leaders for solutions and stuff. But you see, again, at the end of the day, we've got to think on our own. So I'm looking at the ordinary Ugandan out there who say has a business and they're starting out in tourism. I was speaking to a young lady the other day. She was telling me, you know, to get into tourism and, you know, bring guys here and so on and stuff like that. She's just starting out.
Yeah.
You know, but of course you'll hear complaints of taxation, of what, you know, this country is not marketed as an individual who is young and starting out. What can I do about this? And you find that it's still a tall order. So such a young fellow, what do they do? Because maybe they feed into this bigger picture, and if nothing is done at the top, then not so much happens down here for them. Even though, again, like you say, we cannot keep looking to the top. You didn't look to the top. Somehow you figured things out. scathed through the dust and you have made it.
Of course, and one of the reasons why I'm saying that it's okay for us to think about good leadership, but also look at opposition, look at government people. How many of these people directly have real businesses that understand how businesses works? It's very difficult for you to find any, because what happens is that they wake up and say, we double the visa fees to Uganda. They have no understanding of the impact of those visa fees. But at the same time, yes, we need to engage them. If you look at tourism today, according to research by the Ministry of Tourism, they say only 13 companies have closed business between 2014 and 2015. But I think it's a much bigger number, because when Ebola broke out, man, it affected all of Africa, because to the majority of the people, the travelers outside Africa, think that Africa is one country, and therefore it's very difficult.
Actually, many don't know Uganda, but Kenya, they know Africa.
Absolutely, but I also a challenge was our newspapers were carrying top stories about Ebola in West Africa, and this was replicated in New York Times, was replicated in the Telegraph. People read them online. It had nothing to do with us, but we brought a topic to us as you know, Ebola. After that, then I trust in our security agencies. I mean, I think we have one of the best security in terms of police and in terms of defense. But the challenge is that when a leader or somebody in police stands up and says, Entebbe Airport is going to be under attack, they have no idea how we struggle as private sector business people. Immediately people cancel to come to the country. We have to refund thousands and thousands of dollars to the people who have already paid us, because CNN has covered, BBC has covered, and said the Entebbe Airport is going to be under attack. Then we say, oh, Al-Shabaab has come into the country. We know how bad Al-Shabaab has done to Kenya's tourism, but we still talk about those attacks. It's okay to talk about the challenges that may be there, but it is important to tell the world that Uganda has got some of the best security systems on the continent, and they have the ability to contain any situation. These are the challenges that have made us many people lose jobs in the last 9-8 months. Many of the companies have made no profits in the last 8-9 months, and of course it is being compounded by extra charges, taxes on VAT, increasing the visa fees, and all these factors. It made sure that many people have lost jobs, and we need people to get jobs. Now, if businesses don't succeed, jobs won't be created. There's recent research has shown that in less developed countries, 9 out of 10 jobs are created by private sector. If you look at the government of Uganda, how many jobs can the government of Uganda create? They have 29,000 jobs, and they're oversubscribed, in my opinion. They can never create more jobs. We're having over 400,000 kids
on an annual basis.
Yeah, graduating from tertiary institutions and universities, and only 8,000 are getting jobs. So at the end of the day, if we don't have a good plan as a people, remember that we are having a bigger challenge in the future. If we don't create jobs, we're in trouble. 36% of our population is 9 and below. 56% of our population is 18 years and below. 70% of our population is 30 years and below. What it means in the next 10 years, we'll have the gap between the 36 and 56% joining those people looking for jobs. So if we're not planning and utilizing opportunities like tourism that creates jobs, in fact, according to UNWTO, every 10 tourists create 1 permanent job. It is very important that we use this tourism as a conduit for creation of jobs. But those jobs can only be created if the private sector is vibrant and also not being affected by the policies that government sets in place. In fact, one of our biggest worry right now, as I speak, is tourists are asking, can we come to Uganda during this campaigning time? We lost 8-9 months. If we lose another 6 months, I can tell you that tourism is probably going to close for a while.
Look, you are on the media like now, and you use your social media platforms to put these issues out and highlight this and talk about the other and so on. And in my thinking, there's not a paucity of advice on what things need to be done in the Uganda Tourism Board, but the question would be, are the people who need to be listening? Because you see, all this good advice of this is what we should do, this is what we should not do, etc., is all out there. It's not in luck. Are they listening?
I think the issue of listening is a problem. Even at the tourism board where I sit, when you sit down, I was giving an example last week. I wrote to the minister a very tough letter myself, and I said,
Minister for Finance, for tourism, all right.
And the minister listened. Rwanda was translocating 7 lions from South Africa about 10 days ago into Akagera National Park. But just the translocation of lions, a ABC News, CNN, BBC, Telegraph, Daily Mail, everybody covered it. Today I have an office in Rwanda, and I can tell you the amount of business that we're already getting for our Rwanda office is amazing. We were translocating giraffes from Western Falls National Park to Lake Kimburo. Hardly did Ugandans even hear about it. And yet, I was telling Uganda Tourism Board, we shouldn't be in workshops, in meetings. We should go out there and proactively market the country, because now there are a bit of resources. The challenge is the listening. And also the challenge is that we don't have a lot of private sector who are pushing and telling UTB, you know what, we need numbers as opposed to speeches. And I think that's something that we need as private sector to sit and agree with these people. If they don't, we need to go to the people who are giving them resources and say, until the numbers are guaranteed, these people shouldn't be giving speeches.
Look, some have called you a tourism guru, but one thing is for sure, you love this country, you believe in its potential, and you keep advocating it for it. That is, keep doing it, do not tire. I know sometimes it looks like you're trying to squeeze water out of a rock, but
absolutely. But I'm getting audience with people like yourselves, and TV. You've done a great job in helping put these messages out. I can't put my social media. Yes, it's doing a great job, but without you people continue with this kind of programs, we can't go far.
Let's keep doing this. Amos Wekesa, pleasure having you here.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, so there you have it. Look, there is something that struck me some time back that intrigued me. You know, 98%, life is 98% principles and 2% miracles. He was talking earlier on about sometimes we expect things to happen as miracles, but life is only 2% miracles, 98% principles. You know, so if you want things to work, it's not enough that you're beautiful or whatever the case might be. Do something about it. That's everyday life for you. We'll take a break now.